Hiya, I'm Ollie.
Hiya, I'm Rachel and welcome to Drink, Eat, Travel, Repeat. Today we're going to talk about New York City, which is Oliver's favourite place in the whole world. We've been fortunate to visit New York multiple times and we'll be able to give you some hints and tips on what our favourite month of the year to travel in is. With New York, we could do vlogs on many different things, but we're going to try and aim for the first timer this time to give you some hints and tips and time management ideas because there's so much to see in this big city. The first thing that I was going to talk to you about is the geography of the city, because a lot of people believe it to be just Manhattan, which is the centre, but there's actually much more to it than that. So I'll pass it on to Ol to talk about geography.
Yeah, before I do the geography, guys, there's one big important tip to do, because before you come to New York or America for any American destination for that matter, is you need to apply for what's called an ESTA. An ESTA is basically America's version of a travel visa. Without that, you won't get in. So go online and you can do it. It's only about £13–14 to do, and it'll last for up to 2 years. First of all, that gets you into the country. So make sure you do that first and give yourself a few weeks advance, because it can take a few weeks to come through. The geography in New York, a lot of people just think it's just where the films are made, the Manhattan, but it's actually split into 5 boroughs. You've got Manhattan, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Staten Island and Queens. We're going to be focusing on Manhattan for this one. Each borough is brilliant and you should see them, but I think that's probably more of a return visit. So in your Manhattan bit, you've got different boroughs again. You can go up to the top, Upper West, Upper East Side, where the Central Park is. You've got Midtown, where sort of the Empire State is, and just above that is Times Square, Grand Central Station, Madison Square Garden. You can then come further down and you've got like Greenwich, Soho, Chelsea, and the Tribeca, where a lot of the restaurants and the High Line and the fancy places are. Across there you've got the East Village, where Chinatown and Little Italy is. And then you can come further down at the bottom. You've got things like Wall Street, the Empire State Building, and the financial district where the Tower One, the Ground Zero was.
So the next part of our topic is to talk about actually getting to the centre from the airport, because it can be a bit of a nightmare depending on the time of day you arrive.
Yeah, so again, there's many different ways you can travel to and from the airport. There's 3 main airports in New York City. You have Newark, you've got JFK, and then you've got LaGuardia. Now, if you're travelling from the UK or Europe, 9 times out of 10 you'll go to Newark or JFK. LaGuardia is only used for like American flights or internal flights really. So you can do a few things really. You can get the subway, which is kind of hard to, it's the cheapest way of doing it, getting the subway, getting your luggage into the subway, and you can go there and that'll be quite cheap, pretty quick, but dependent on the weather can change really quick in New York, so it could be raining, snowing, and carrying a lot of bags on the subway depending on when you get there can be quite tricky. You can also get a yellow cab. They're set at the prices now. When we first started going it was like meter, but now they're set, so $65–70 it'll get you to where you want to go in the Times Square area, for example. You can also share a shuttle bus. We've done that as well. Now that's again cheaper than a yellow cab, but you're going to be sharing it with maybe 5 or 10 other families, so it can take quite a while. We personally prefer to get a private cab, which is organised before, so they'll be waiting at you at the pickup. You've got your own private cab, it's a lot more spacious, and if you can afford it, it's not much more than a yellow cab, so you can pick them up for maybe $120, $140 return, so you'll get that on the way to and from the airport, from your digs as well, wherever you stay.
So, and that does bring us on to our next topic, because Manhattan is so vast. What area is the best to stay?
It depends on what blog you do or whatever research you read, but generally a lot of people will say stay away from the touristy areas or whatever, or Times Square, because that's where all the tourists go. But for a first timer, I would say that's an ideal location, because Times Square is pretty central. You've got quite a lot of things within walking distance there, and at the end of the day, you are a tourist if you're the first time there, so you want to feel like you're in New York. You know, you want to see the Times Square, the lights, you know, Central Park and things like that. So I think there's a real buzz around Times Square. So for a first timer, I would definitely stay around that area.
Brilliant. The next thing is there's quite a time difference. It's 5 hours behind in New York. What would be your best tip off you to try and manage that?
Yeah, 5 hours is it doesn't seem a lot, but like when you're getting up early, most of the flights in England will leave early doors, so 7-8 o'clock, which means you're up at 4 in the morning-ish, depending on even earlier if you're traveling from a different place. But so by the time you get to New York, you'll generally land in the afternoon. You'll have 2 or 3 o'clock. So again, it might be an hour and 40 minutes, you know, transfer time getting in. By the time you've packed and everything like that, it's quite a long day. So we'd always say bat it out, because by the time you get to a bar, it might be 6 o'clock New York time, but 11 o'clock at home. Now the worst thing you can do is go to sleep, you know, because it's 11 o'clock. You want to really try and bat it out for as long as you can, because the quicker you get onto New York time, the better it is. And as tired as you are sometimes, just get a couple of Red Bulls down you or whatever and go see it, and go stay out 10, 11 o'clock at night if you can, and then you'll get the most out of your stay, definitely.
And not be up at the crack of dawn every day.
Yeah, because you can be up at 3 or 4 in the morning and it's just like nothing's open.
The next thing is attractions. So we all know that there's so much to see and do in New York. Do you have any tips on which attractions to see, which is your favourites, and any like money saving tips?
There's a lot of attractions to see in New York, and there's a lot of different things to do. And again, you can do various, it doesn't hurt to do a little bit of research yourself. But the City Pass we've used a few times for family, friends and everything like that have come. This will enable you to see 6 things outside of the top attractions, if you will. So you've got your Empire State Building in there, the World Trade Center, the Rockefeller, the Empire State Building. Of course, you can pay for these separate, it just costs a little bit more. So if you do want to go and see all these things, it is sometimes better to book by. I mentioned the City Pass there, but there are others. And if you don't think, well, I don't want to see 6 things, they actually do a C3 Pass, which is the City 3 Pass, which is a little less money. And you can do that. I think the City Pass is about £85 for children and £100-ish for adults, but it does save you quite a lot of money, and you don't have to worry about queuing up then for your tickets. To get your tickets, you've already got it.
Yeah. Another thing to talk about is comedy clubs. So first time we went, there was people coming up to us on every corner saying comedy. It was a bit unsure like what it's all about, so I thought maybe you could tell everybody if they're worth visiting or not.
Yeah, the one thing about New York is there is a lot of chances. You'll get people selling your CDs or giving you CDs or trying to give you fake things, passing them off as real things, or, you know, it is everywhere. It's a city at the end of the day, so there's a lot of people trying to earn a living. Now, the comedy clubs are brilliant. You've just got to be careful, because the price of the comedy club is really cheap, innit? It's like, you can get it for $10 a ticket if you want, you know, $10 a ticket, $15, $20 a ticket. And some of the best comedians out of New York have started in New York. Your Chris Rocks, your Dave Chappelle's, Adam Sandler's, they've all been there. So you do get to see some up and coming stars, really. The thing to watch out for is when you do get there, again, they'll draw you in with the cheap tickets, but the beer will be expensive. So some bars will have a minimum spend of maybe $100. But we don't. If you don't mind if you see it, it is worth it. So it's not overly expensive, but it's just to watch out for, because you might think, oh, this is mint, I've got a ticket at $10 here for 5 comedians, and then you get there and it's like $15 a beer. It's just something to watch out for. I suppose they've got to get the money somehow. And also
on one of our first comedy clubs, I can't remember which one exactly, but you've got to watch out for the geography of it, because one of them was pretty far away and we started walking and it was a little bit further than we expected, but most of them have been in and around Times Square, but we just check that geography before you buy a ticket.
Always have a good time, it's worth it, isn't it? Wow.
Definitely. The next thing is why a lot of people go to New York is to see the shows on Broadway. Is there any hints and tips you've got on that for us?
Well, when we go, we like to see a show too, so like the tickets can be quite expensive depending on where you want to sit. Now, if you're like me and like to sort things out like beforehand, you can always book your tickets because you guarantee the spot. Now, some people will sell you tickets in and around Times Square. There's a place called TKTS, you can't miss it. It's on the big steps of Times Square. Underneath there, if you get there early morning, there'll be tickets for shows that are on that day. Now, some shows like Hamilton or maybe even The Lion King, they never need to do discounted tickets because they're always going to sell out. But if you're going to see another show, that's the place to go to get your discounted tickets. There is other places online or whatever, and you can even download the TKTS app, but that there will get you maybe even half price tickets sometimes as well. So if you want to chance it and wait till the day of the show, that's where you might get your half price tickets.
But you might have to waiting queue, so be prepared for that. Sometimes you can get lucky, but obviously peak times and stuff, it's massive queues on that.
There's a big line sometimes, yeah.
One of my favourite things to do in New York is visit Madison Square Gardens. Just want to explain what that is and why we recommend people to go.
Yeah, Madison Square Gardens, everybody knows, well, everybody has heard of it, I assume, like it. All your big fights are there, your Floyd Mayweather, your boxing, and it's really, really special place to go. We like to go. And it's the home of the New York Rangers, who are the local ice hockey team, and then the New York Knicks, who are my basketball team. I love going to watch them. It's just brilliant because in and around that area you've got a few different bars. It's like around 33rd Street in it, near Grand Central and Empire State Building, so you could sort of incorporate it into your sightseeing if you wanted. But it's brilliant to go, and we generally go to Hooters, which is right near it. They've got a brilliant bar, they've got brilliant beer, food, and there's big sports screens all over, so you can watch the games beforehand, the games afterwards, and then go watch your game. And in there it's mint, and it's just they've got like every beer you can think of. They've got hot dog stands, pizza stands, and it's just a really good experience to watch a basketball or hockey game. So I definitely recommend going to Madison Square Garden, 100%.
And another tip I would say about Madison Square Gardens is when we've been, we've needed our passport for ID because they wouldn't accept English driving licenses. Not every person in the ground was like that. We did find one that did accept our driving license in the end, but if we hadn't, then we would have been going fearless. So probably best to take your passport with you just to be safe if you're fresh-faced. The next thing is talking about eating, drinking, what we love to do, but then of course all the tipping as well.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really want to go too much depth on this vlog, sorry, about eating and drinking, because eventually we're going to be doing our own vlogs about our favourite restaurants in New York, our favourite bars in New York. But there's 9,500 restaurants on Manhattan, so you'll find somewhere to eat. And generally, if it's your first time, which is what this is about, you're going to be going in and out of places all the time. So some people might want to go and have a nice sit-down restaurant, which is fine. On our first time, it was about seeing as much as we could, because we were just sort of, we loved it. We wanted to see all the sights and everything. So we're getting a lot of street food. We'd have slices of pizza that are on every corner. We'd stop in an Irish bar because it was freezing the first time we went. So every few blocks is an Irish bar. We'd get some food, a couple of pints, and then get on our travels again. So structurally wise, we didn't sit down and have food at restaurants. We went everywhere, in between sort of thing. When it comes to tipping, it's a weird thing in America, because in England tipping is just people get paid a set wage and then you can tip if you think you've had good service. In America you'll get the bill and there'll be a service charge on there, which is going to the waiter or waitress, and then there'll also be an additional tip. So the service charge will go to the waiter, and if you think you've had extra service, you would give a tip. We normally work on the rule of $1 a beer. If you're having a beer, a bottled beer, $1 a beer. Or if we're having a big tab, 20% of the tab if you've had really good service. It's the same with the bellboys that take the bags and the taxi drivers. Normally $1 a bag, or maybe 10-15% for the taxi driver. That's generally what's expected. I mean, it's not law, so you don't have to do it, but it is kind of frowned upon if you don't, because that is how they make a living. So we always say, make sure you tip well, because you've got to look after the bartenders, and if you do, they'll look after you, to be fair, at the end of the day, don't they? They give you freebies sometimes, don't they? And we've had a lot of good drinks. We've got a lot of good friends now over in New York who are bartenders and that, so look after them. Yeah,
definitely. So it's always obviously, especially in today's times, still worth taking cash, because obviously everyone has cards all the time, but then look small tips, with the taxi drivers and bellboys and stuff like that, it's worth having some cash on you. The next thing we wanted to talk about was money exchange and paying.
Yeah, so if for whatever reason you see the money exchange, you run out of currency and you see the currency exchange, there's loads of them in Times Square. They put them in nice areas where they know there's a lot of tourists who might not understand where else to get the money. The exchange rate is terrible. You'd be better just taking your bank card and going to a cash machine like the Bank of America or something like that, drawing the money out, and the exchange rate will be far better. And if you are paying for things on your card, get it in American dollars. If you go to your local currency, the transaction rate will be a lot worse. So if you actually get them and ask them, they'll give you the option, do you want it in dollars or pounds, for example, from England? I'll always go dollars, please, because the transaction fees aren't as big and the exchange rate is slightly better, for sure.
Yeah, we didn't know that at first, did we? We'd always just say our currency, and then, so that's definitely a good tip. So to summarise, what would you say the main points are for people visiting New York City?
100%, I'd be saying make sure some people can go for 4 nights, 5 nights. I always think a week's a good time for the first, because you're going to get to see as much as you can. But for me, I always tell people to make an itinerary. It sounds sad, but there's that much to do. Like even getting from the airport, it's 19 miles away from JFK, 18 miles away from Newark into Times Square. That journey can take anything between 45 minutes and 2.5 hours. So all of it is basically traffic dependent and everything like that. So make an itinerary and make the most of your stay. If you want to see Times Square, walk up to, and you want to see Central Park, try and do it in the same day. So see your Central Park, your Natural History Museum, Strawberry Fields, the Dakota Building, and then you can go down and hit on the next day, you can go down to Empire State, Madison Square Garden, Grand Central Station, try and clump them all together. One good tip is that we mentioned earlier about time, the difference in the jet lag, the 5 hours that they're behind, is if you do get up early at like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, not much is open, so you might as well get the tube or the subway or walk. We like walking down to Grand Central and get the tube, or walk all the way down straight to the bottom where Ground Zero is, and you can actually then see the sunrise on Brooklyn Bridge. That there's free, but you can do that while you're waiting for things to open, get a bit of exercise in, burn the pints off, and get to Brooklyn Bridge, see the sunrise, and then you're already down there, so you can hit Wall Street, you can hit the World Trade Center, the Lady Liberty, and clumping things together really is the biggest time saver, I would say, and making sure you see the most out of it.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I'd say is that you're never going to be able to see everything on the first trip, because it's just way too big. So pick out what your favourite things are and then work down your list until you run out of time.
Yeah. The other little thing I was going to say, helicopter tours are mint. They're a brilliant way to see the actual whole island. We've got some brilliant shots out with some photos. If you are doing that and it is on your list, try and book it early doors, because they are weather dependent. So if you want to book the the helicopter trip, do it on your first 2 days, because we've had one cancel on us before, but luckily it gives you 2 or 3 days to rebook it, because if it is too windy
or cloudy, it's pointless because you can't see anything. So yeah, we are going to do many more vlogs on New York, and we're hoping to get there this year and actually vlog it whilst we're there, because we haven't done that yet. That's all COVID dependent, obviously. The other vlogs that we're planning on doing is definitely our favourite bars, because there's many of them, and favourite food places what we visit, so we'll give you all the information on that as well. But that's it from me. Do you have anything else to say on?
No, just enjoy it, have a great time, and if you need to ask us any questions, just hit us up. But share the links, guys, get subscribing, follow us, and hopefully you've enjoyed this vlog.
Thanks guys.
Cheers.
Bye.